Will gambling scandals always be a thing in sports here in the U.S.? After all, sports betting is not going anywhere, so how do we stop the bad actors? The issue is that money talks, and sports books are willing to risk the shady behavior in order to keep their big bettors very happy. I'm Doug Kezirian. This is Hard Pass, also available in podcast. Is Michael Porter Jr. the Jose Canseco of sports betting? I'm not quite ready to go there yet, but the NBA player has opened our eyes to where we are with gambling and sports, and just how sheltered and in some ways clueless professional athletes really are. Initially, I thought Porter should just avoid this topic when he was asked on a recent podcast, given his brother is permanently banned from the NBA for his involvement in a scheme where he manipulated his own playing time to help pay off gambling debts. But on the other hand, Porter Jr. was very authentic and revealing in that interview.
Think about if you could get all your homies rich by telling them, yo,
no shit,
bet $10,000 on my under, this one game I'm gonna act like I got an injury and I'm gonna sit out. I'm gonna come out after 3 minutes. And they all get a little bag because you did it one game. Like, that is so not okay. But some people probably think like that. They come from nothing and 100%. All their homies have nothing.
100%.
And they're like, bro, if I come out of this game after 3 minutes and y'all all hit on my under, we're all getting a little bag.
There are so many layers to this topic. And given that I first moved to Las Vegas 20 years ago and have been immersed since, pretty knowledgeable about sports betting on many fronts. I'm about to explain this topic clearly and thoroughly from all angles throughout this episode. In fact, there's actually a sports betting conference in Vegas right now, and I asked a bunch of my colleagues their thoughts and their reactions to the layers involved, and you will hear their comments throughout this episode. But the first order of business is to understand really what is the issue. Is there a problem right now, or is this just the simple process of breaking a few eggs to make an omelet?
So listen to him talk about that in a very functional way where it's like, if I take this game, I can make my friends money. That's really scary. But to take it to the next level, Malik Beasley, someone who lived beyond his means apparently for several years, is doing it through fixing bets. It's been a very scary offseason.
Yes, it's absolutely scary anytime a career has been ruined. We get that. But are these just outliers? In the NBA, we've seen nefarious behavior with Jonte Porter, Michael Beasley and his gambling debts involved, right? The backstory to bookies. And then Terry Rozier. All different, but sports betting is a common denominator with all the cases. In the NFL, players have placed wagers, but not on their own games and not skewing their own performance for prop bets, at least as far as we know. However, in baseball, pitchers are being investigated for throwing a ball that was aligned with irregular betting activity on those exact pitches. Bizarre. So clearly some shady stuff, right? That goes without saying. But if you think about all the games that are played in all the sports, all the stats, all the plays, how bad is it really? It's the smallest percentage, right? I've always said Wall Street has insider trading. You don't shut down the stock market, right? You just have more regulation and oversight and stiffer punishment. Well, that concept can certainly apply to sports betting.
It was always possible for them to do it, right? Like even a less transparent way. These type of news articles coming out every once in a while, it's a little bit par for the course. And it's actually, I think, personally better because it gets caught on a little faster. People aren't as, honestly, smart about it sometimes. And it gets caught on a little faster than you probably would have in the past.
I agree. And it's very important to realize two things. One, sports betting is not going anywhere, legally or illegally. It is here forever. Two, it was not invented in 2018 when the Supreme Court changed its ruling of the federal ban and reversed that, right? A tiny sliver of bad actors has always existed. For example, NBA referee Tim Donaghy, the Donaghy scandal, that was in 2007, well before the Supreme Court ruling. It involved illegal bookies. And fortunately, he was eventually caught. In fact, and I know this on good authority, an NBA team in the 1980s had an arena game clock operator. So the guy doing the scoreboard and everything that was in on the fix on overs. He would perpetually stop the clock randomly for a half second, a second. It lengthened the game, right? So while the game was going on, he started and stopped it, basically just added seconds to a minute, right? It meant more possessions and thus more scoring and thus more likely to cash the overs. He never got busted. It never came to light. But now more bad actors are getting caught thanks to regulation and oversight. The more that this is all above board, the easier it is to monitor. Remember, sports books are on the exact same side as the pro leagues. They want fair games, just like the casinos do with the deck of cards or the dice. They don't want anything being manipulated. So more oversight is a win for everyone.
You cannot tolerate anyone messing with the integrity of the game on any level. That is why people are watching, and because they think they're watching a fair game. Anytime you mess with that, you're fucked as a business. You just are. So you have to protect that. Anyone that's messing with it, you have to throw the hammer on them.
Right now, the punishments seem appropriate. After all, Jontay Porter has a lifetime ban from the NBA. I just think young people, particularly athletes that have proven all the doubters wrong over the years to make it to the pros, sometimes a byproduct is that is thinking they're always indestructible and do not truly understand the risk, even with so much on the line.
Short-sighted too, it's amazing how these guys can millions of dollars they have access to, and they're gonna bend it over 20 grand just because they think it's easy. And now even with guys getting caught, they're still thinking it's easy. So yeah, I couldn't imagine wanting to screw that up.
So what do? Banning betting is not the answer because, as I've said a couple times already, it's not going away. It's here to stay. So are the operators to blame? On one hand, you don't see athletes drinking beer on the sidelines just because there are commercials and advertisements for alcohol companies on the Jumbotron, right? On the other hand, since legalization, sportsbooks ads and marketing are seemingly everywhere right now.
They should know better. They really should. And everyone likes to blame, the sportsbook, they're pumping all this gambling content. Come on. You know when you're doing something wrong. You know when you're throwing a game.
It's in the spotlight. I don't think it affects it though. I think the stuff that was happening was probably going to happen anyway. It's just easier now to catch it. It's easier to see it. And I think the small stakes stuff is where we're going to catch these guys on the dumb stuff,
That dumb stuff is called micro betting, the quick results, such as the first pitch of an inning, ball or strike. It does seem pretty ridiculous to me, but it's because we live in this microwave society, people like it. So this is the sports betting version of a hand of blackjack.
The casual bettor, a lot of the folks that aren't like super in the weeds of this industry, they really like that micro betting stuff. Like the simple-minded stuff, like a little bit more quick adrenaline rush type things, like betting a full game over a 2-hour span. That's really not that appealing to a lot of folks. So I appreciated the honesty. We don't get a lot of athletes that are very honest, but I think it explains the exact problem. It explains very clearly why player props and certain things, especially for low-level players, are a problem for sports books. And as a bettor, I hate trying to be on the side of sports books, but it's a problem. As someone who's been a long time, who's been to a lot of tennis and other sports where occasionally there are things that are fixed, I appreciate the honesty, but it really concerns me, and it makes me feel like we should have less player props.
So conventional wisdom would suggest that micro betting should not be offered, or the limit should be very low, like $50. However, stay with me here. The sports books, just like a casino, cater to their big bettors. Those are known as whales. If a whale wants to make a certain type of bet, and a certain amount, they will do almost anything to allow that whale to make the wager. Because if they don't, they'll lose that extremely valuable customer to a competitor who will be willing to say yes. So these whales are lifetime losers. And that's why the sports books treat them so well. They give them tickets to concerts, Super Bowls, all sorts of perks. You name it. They want that action. So the last thing they're going to do is say no to this very valuable customer. They're going to say yes to basically anything they want. However, this is where the problem occurs. Those whale accounts at some point can get flipped. Not all, but some. They are down so much money that they need help. And then the unethical piranhas pounce. Now, how they learn who's what, I don't really know. But when they get their hands on them, they convince the whale to let them use that account to bet huge on a micro bet of something that's going to be fixed. The sports book thinks it's the whale betting big still, just like he normally has. And only sometimes does the sportsbook even realize what has happened after the fact. After all, I'm of the belief that anytime there's someone busted, it's not an isolated incident. They just got caught. Others have not. I'm willing to bet we will see another player have an issue. And maybe it's in the WNBA league we haven't touched on yet. Let me put it this way. Jontay Porter, Michael Beasley, and Terry Rozier are not the only basketball players we've seen do something wrong. Frankly, we would just be naive to assume that. Come on. Let me know your thoughts. Join the conversation. Weigh in here. A lot of topics, a lot of layers to this, like I said. Please weigh in and let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Time now for fans in the stands, and this is when we like to address some of the comments from our audience for our fans in the stands and the comments section, the most recent YouTube episode, which touched on two things: the Jontay Porter / Michael Porter Jr. topic with betting and what happened in terms of Porter Jr.'s podcast interview, and then also Caitlin Clark's recent growing injury in terms of like, what's the deal here? She hasn't played in a month, fever, struggling. So we'll first start with Ryan Huffman's comment: tone deaf of MPJ to be so open about scamming the books, fans, and his own team, but it's kind of refreshing. It wouldn't surprise me at all to find out that kind of behavior is rampant in all professional sports. At least he's open about it, I guess. And my thoughts exactly, as that's what I was alluding to. I expect another athlete, it's going to surface at some point that some shadiness was going down, but it was refreshing. And my takeaway, or one of my takeaways, is that that conversation or that thought he had, that was not the first time he has said that out loud. He's probably said it to other friends and things like that. He probably forgot for a split second that he was doing a podcast that was going to be in a public forum. And it just was a window into what's really being said behind closed doors, so to speak. DC 180PP, growing strains are pesky and hard to come from, easy to re-aggravate. Same with hamstring and calf strains. She came back from it once and re-injured it, so the fever are going to be more conscious and conservative now. I get it, and every day you delay the comeback is probably closer or more increases likely to being healthy, but Indiana is in danger of missing the playoffs. She hasn't played in a month. There's going to be an adjustment period, so I think they're playing with fire. I wonder, that was the subject of the last episode, is it panic time for the fever? That's the question I was asking. We'll see what transpires. Other teams like the Storm are losing as well. Brad Elwanger, am I the only one who hears Sam Malone rapping growing injury every time Caitlin Clark's injury is mentioned? And this was a reference to Cheers, which was a legendary TV show. Before Seinfeld, there was Cheers. Sam Malone, character played by Ted Danson, the actor. Sam Malone is a former Red Sox pitcher who's now a bartender in Boston. And he was actually had a job as a local Boston sportscaster. And he was doing a rap of like the news going on. And then he used growing injury in the rap. So it didn't trigger my memory. So great pull there, Brad. But good to have a Cheers shout out nonetheless. That's going to do it for this episode of Hard Pass. We always appreciate you tuning in. Please like and subscribe. And then also join the conversation. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. We always welcome it. And we shall see where this betting topic goes next. And hopefully it's not another issue with a player, but I think it's only a matter of time.